Good evening and welcome everyone to our third and last evening of the event series Activism, Alpinism. Since November until now, we bring mountain sport and social engagement into dialogue with amazing guests, 3 different guests throughout 3 different evenings. And tonight we continue, not just on the topic of activism and alpinism, also on the question on how important safe spaces and community are, how inclusive empowerment looks like, or what the role of activism in sports like climbing is. But before we dive deeper and before I introduce the guest, I just want to make sure that those who are new tonight and who haven't been here yet know what is going to happen tonight. So we will have a short input tonight. There's going to be a little movie and an input from our guest. Afterwards, we head into a shared discussion and conversation, and afterwards is the invitation for all of you to participate and to co-create this evening. You find pens and paper on your chairs, and you're warmly invited to write down any questions you might have, or a reflection, or anything you want to share that you then have the option and the opportunity to ask to our guest Zof tonight. There's enough time for co-creation of this evening, and you're warmly welcome to follow in. Enough already from my side, and I'm gonna introduce our wonderful guest of tonight, who's going to join me on the stage later on. Zof Reych, born in Poland and currently residing in Fontainebleau, France, is a non-binary writer and anthropologist who has been working in the outdoor industry since 2015, focusing on non-profit initiatives and community. Their broad interests hover at the intersections of mental health, art, media, sports, and gender. Zof is the founder of the Women's Bouldering Festival and author of the book Born to Climb, From Rock Climbing Pioneers to Olympic Athletes. Please give her a warm welcome. And before we're getting to know Zof better, we'll have a little glimpse into one of the projects I just mentioned, the Women's Bouldering Festival. It's a film called All Pronouns, and it's a short documentary by Lizzie Goebel, shot at the 2023 edition of the Women's Bouldering Festival. It documents the experiences of the participants of the main outdoor part of the event, as well as the annual route-setting workshop that takes place on Friday before the festival weekend. So enjoy your evening. A very warm welcome already to Zof, and so happy that you're here tonight.
Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Isabella and to the entire ALPS Museum for organizing this event and the whole series. And yeah, a massive thank you goes to you with this amazing weather outside. I really appreciate all of you who came in today. And actually, I would like to say that this choice was a little act of activism, and I will expand on that a little bit later on. Could we have the slideshow, please? So we're just going to have pictures moving from, I think, last year's Women's Bouldering Festival. And feel free to look at the images. You don't need to look at me. I'm just going to be like your podcast in the background. So if you have questions about the movie that we just saw, let's get back to that later. And I'm going to start by talking about the Women's Bouldering Festival, which we organized for the first time in 2018. And I just wanted to share a little bit of the story of the event, and through the story of the event, I guess a little bit of my story too. So we moved to Fontainebleau in 2018, and the reason was because I was slightly delusional and I thought I could become a professional climber. And you know, Fontainebleau being the place in the world to do bouldering, it seemed like the place to go, so that's what we did. And as we started climbing in the forest, I realized very quickly that there was something that felt different. So I came, I don't want to say from an indoor climbing background, but for many years I climbed predominantly indoors in London, which is a very cosmopolitan place, and seeing the difference in the demographic between London indoor climbing walls and the forest of Fontainebleau was quite shocking. So it turned out that I don't want to say everybody, that's a massive generalization, but let's just go with it. Everybody was a middle-class, white, middle-aged man, and it felt weird. So it is possible that I sort of noticed that more than others because I already had a little bit of a background in thinking about gender in climbing. I did my master's in, not gender studies, anthropology, but basically looking at gender in climbing a few years prior. So moving to Fontainebleau, I was already like primed to think about it. And once I saw the demographic and the sort of weird vibe that sometimes unfolded, especially on harder boulders where there were very few people who were not men, I felt like, well, I did something theoretical about gender in climbing. How about we do something practical about gender in climbing? And already before 2018, there were a few events dedicated to women in climbing outdoors in the US. So there was the Flash Foxy Climbing Festival, which is still going, and it's absolutely amazing. It takes place in Bishop in California. If you ever have the opportunity to go, I highly recommend. And there was also already the Women's Climbing Symposium in London. So I had been once to the Women's Climbing Symposium. I did not enjoy it, not because the event wasn't great. The event was great, but I'm autistic, so I don't like participating in things. I'm much better on the organizing side. And also, back then, what I didn't realize was that not only I didn't like events, I personally didn't vibe with women's events because I'm actually non-binary. But in 2018, I didn't know this. I didn't have the vocabulary to describe and understand my transgender experience. So I was identifying with the group within which I sort of most fitted, I don't know, by the societal standards. And so the Women's Bouldering Festival started in 2018. I thought that once I introduced this marvelous idea to the Fontainebleau climbing community, everybody will be besotted. And boy, was I wrong. It turned out that the climbing community in Fontainebleau isn't sexist. We don't need your event. You're a foreigner with weird ideas. And these were the opinions that I got not only from guys, also from women. It basically felt like it was disturbing somehow to them locally. Obviously not to everybody. There were people who were massively supportive, but when you try to organize something and every critic feels like 10, and it really felt like there was a big pushback. But I knew my reasons, and I went with it anyway. We organized the first event, and I want to read a little excerpt from an essay that I sent out in my newsletter last year, I think, just because it's very succinct, and instead of trying to explain, walking in circles, it's just easier if I read it. So allow me to read a little piece. It's an essay called Women-Only Events, Necessity or Sexism, Notes from a Community Organizer. In fields historically dominated by white middle-class men, diversity-specific events offer participants a chance to enter social dynamics that center their own needs and experiences. Critics often label these events as promoting reverse sexism or racism, but these are inherently flawed concepts that mistake the need for social equity with hostility. Unlike prejudice, discrimination is systemic. It affects nearly every aspect of a person's life: laws and policies, access to healthcare, economic opportunity, exposure to violence, and more. At the core of diversity-specific events lies the desire to gather in a place of safety. To give a stark example, a black trans woman, statistically the most likely to be violated or murdered by a white man, has clear reasons not to feel safe in spaces dominated by white men. In environments shared with others like her, she can breathe easily and discover what her experience is like without the looming threat of discrimination. Feeling offended or excluded by events that are not meant for us is a sign of fragility, something to work through internally rather than a demand for inclusion. But diversity-specific events do have limitations. They do not involve other groups in conversations about ending discrimination. It is obvious that men should be feminists cis people should be trans allies, and white people should be POC allies, but diversity-focused events can take many forms. And it is up to the organizers to decide whether inclusion of other groups aligns with their specific goals. Crucially, when the intention behind an event is sound, almost any group can benefit from having a space of its own. In the UK, men-only cold water swimming groups allow men to practice vulnerability, build deeper bonds, and step away from increasingly rigid male beauty standards. This kind of initiative is fundamentally different from the exclusionary men-only clubs of the past, and even more so from neo-Nazi calls for white pride events in response to black pride events. We need to reject exclusionism that seeks to entrench existing power imbalances and support it only when social equity and safety are its clear goals. So with all that in mind, we started the event in 2018, and between 2018 and the 9th edition this year, 8th editions in, we've welcomed about 1,500 climbers. The event was, at the start, dedicated to female climbers. With time, it evolved as an event for Flinta climbers, still centering women's experiences. And from the feedback that we get every year, because we collect feedback, we try to be serious people, it seems that it's an event that is needed. It seems that it's an event that brings people something that they yearn for and that they lack in other settings. However, being an event for women, the event quickly sort of run into its own limitations. So first of all, we've had a lot of interest from the non-binary community. A lot of AFAB, so assigned female at birth, non-binary people wanted to come, but they felt during the event that their experience was not enough validated or at the center of things, because if you've got 150 women, I think 2 years ago we even had 250 participants, and then 10 participants who are non-binary. Even if you keep reminding people, hey, there are non-binary people among us, use the right pronouns, ask each other's pronouns, and then there is trans men who also want an event that would be for them and inclusive, but they don't want to come to a women's event. And then you'd get emails saying like, hey, I'm a man, can I come to this event? But I don't want to come. We were like, you know what? We're just going to organize an event for trans and non-binary, agender, and in general, genderqueer people. And that's what we did in 2025. So last year in March, we had the first Fontainebleau Trans Fest, and it felt massive. It felt like the 7 years of Women's Bouldering Festival before sort of broke the ice with the local community and maybe broader climbing community, and the events that were dedicated to specific underserved and underrepresented groups, they felt valid. And with the Trans Fest, at first it was a little bit scary. Even, a lot of the participants felt a little bit spooked out because a lot of trans people have legitimate fears about their safety. But in the end, we had a great time. Everybody was welcomed very warmly by the broader community in Fontainebleau, and our second event in March this year also went quite well. And so far we've had around 100 trans, non-binary, intersex, and genderqueer climbers coming to that event, so I'm super psyched about it. Between the Women's Bouldering Festival, the Trans Fest, a little bit of activism on this side of conservation, and my writing, it kind of turned out that I, without a plan for it, became a full-time activist. And what I mean by that is that almost all that I do is somehow directed at improving diversity, inclusion, or conservation within climbing and a broader outdoor sports and sports in general context. And I kind of started asking myself, what does it mean? Like, other people started calling me an activist. I'm like, who's an activist? This is a little bit like wishy-washy. And to be sort of concrete about it, activism is the use of direct and noticeable action to achieve a result, usually a political or social one. The use of direct and noticeable action to achieve a result. And I sort of feel that you don't need to make it in any shape or form your profession. For me, it happened randomly, perhaps because I'm so neurodiverse that I just couldn't get a real job. But I feel that everybody, in their everyday choices and life, I don't want to say should, but can be an activist. And let me give you some examples before we go into the more sort of like broad and theoretical side of things. If as a climber, I want to go to South Africa, to Rocklands, beautiful area, loads of good boulders, I might start thinking about all the CO2 that I'm going to emit flying there. So I might decide not to go by plane to the other side of the world to amuse myself. I might decide to go to Portugal by train or stay at home. If I decide to go and take the flight, I might want to somehow offset my impact by, for example, making a decision not to eat animal products during the trip, or not to eat animal products for 6 months around the trip, or maybe buy some carbon offsets, simple options. I might also just decide to go, because, I'm just a person and I need to take care of myself as well. Another example, indoor climbing or outdoor climbing. Not everybody can take their t-shirt off. You saw the video that we had from the 2023 Women's Bouldering Festival. It was 38 degrees during that event. I spent 3 days running around telling people, please don't get a sunstroke. Did you get enough water? Go in the shade. Put a hat on. It was quite stressful. But hey, women and people with breasts cannot take their t-shirt off. So for a male climber or a male presenting climber to choose not to do it is a political choice. However, if they choose to do it without thinking about it, this is also a political choice. It's a choice that has implications. It's a choice that might make other people uncomfortable. It's a choice that supports the existing power structures. It's just that if it's an unconscious choice, that person doesn't know about it. Their choice still has implications, but they don't know about it, but the implications are still there. So by becoming informed, by becoming aware, we can make decision about which parts of our life we want to sort of try and, just live for ourselves, because we only have ourselves to take care of, but which part of our lives we have the capacity, the extra resources, mental, financial, to do the thing that would allow us to align our actions with our ethics. Because all of us have some ethics, all of us have some beliefs. You're here because you believe in something, in social equity, in climate change, and the fact that we should do something about it. So then, if you have those beliefs, but then your choices are not informed, well, that kind of makes no sense. As soon as the choices become informed, well, that is activism. And this is a very grassroots thing. This is a thing for the community, for the individual, but I'm also super interested in a broader sport context. And I love banging on about the Olympics and the institutionalized sports in general. So let's move a little bit from grassroots events for climbing outside to this bigger picture. And climbing is now part of the Olympics. What many people don't realize that the Olympics is a terribly capitalist, conservative, climate change denialist, and abusive institution. And it abuses athletes. And as loads of people don't know it, they might just watch the Olympics on TV, streaming. They might want to buy Olympic merchandise. They might want to get psyched about athletes, their results. I'm not going to lie, I do get psyched. I was watching Winter Olympics, I was rooting for Michaela Schifrin, I was rooting for Lindsey Vonn, but the conversations I have is, hey, did you see what happened to Lindsey? By the way, did you know how much CO2 the Milano Olympics emitted? Those conversations, I'm not saying don't get psyched about professional, elite, institutionalized sports, but be aware what comes with it. So, for example, saying, mentioning the things that are important on the social, political, economic level, that is the drop that, what's the expression that drains somebody English here? It's gonna make a change in the end. Incidentally, Olympics are also, and institutionalized sports in general, a massive part in upkeeping and perpetuating the gender divide. Why? Because institutionalized sports were conceptualized in the time when our society, Victorian times, the Victorian gentlemen, early scientists, were entrenching the deep and still pervasive ideas about how gender is binary. And that's why we get sports divided into men and women. That's why we get the policing of women's bodies. Who is a woman? Who isn't a woman? That's why we now get the problem of trans climbers who cannot now participate in the Olympics. Conversely, outdoor sports, action sports are completely, well, they're not completely different, they're quite different. Because we have an individual, having an individual experience in the outdoors, suddenly the social gender norms can be subverted. Suddenly, it's about a body in nature, and therefore, outdoor sports have this beautiful, beautiful opportunity or beautiful potential to subvert gender norms, to provide us with different points of view, with different experiences, and they will lose that potential if we don't consciously make a pushback against what's coming with institutionalization. And here, I've got another excerpt for you, this time from an essay that I wrote last year for Buttermag, which is a feminist action sports magazine. And the essay's title was, "Nature is queer, so should be sport, so should be sports." Let me just get a sip. We know beyond doubt that social gender is a construct. What's more, biological gender, or sex, is also not as binary as Victorian science had us believe. There is no one parameter to determine whether a person is a male or a female, and pregnant women with XY chromosomes are a fact, as are any innumerable variations to the human sex continuum. Admittedly, most vertebrates tend to sit on either side, on either end of the spectrum, but even in humans, individuals described as intersex occur roughly as often as the birth of twins, or having red hair. Outside of the human world, it turns out that nature is infinitely queer. Slugs, snails, and even some species of fish can change gender multiple times during their lifespan. Mainstream sports are as ill-equipped to reflect reality as only a starched Victorian gentleman could be. While efforts to diversify institutionalized sports and their governing bodies are undoubtedly important, I tend to think that they are a lost cause. Spectator sports are simply too tainted by misogyny, racism, and ruthless capitalism. Instead, I pin my hopes on alternative, grassroots currents. And on that note, I would like to say that those grassroots currents are us. Us being conscious about our everyday choices, us being critical of the broader socio-cultural context. And there is this call that we often hear to take politics out of climbing, take politics out of sports. Well, guess what? You can't do it. Politics is already there. And trying to deny it is only ignoring it. And is taking actions, because life is taking actions. We take actions every day. We get out of bed, we do things. And those things have an impact, broader, wider, going further than we imagine. So as soon as those choices are informed, as soon as those choices align with our ethics, even, if somebody works 9 to 5 in a cubicle in an office, but then makes little choices in other areas of their life, they are an activist. If they make those choices consciously, if they align those choices with their ethics. And as much as possible, being informed changes things. It might seem tiny, because as humans, we're against those enormous systems that feel way beyond us. But to close off, I would like to say that those enormous systems, the Olympics, institutionalized sports, nation states, these are systems made by humans, by individuals. And so they are systems that can be undone, redefined, and rebuilt by individuals, by you. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we doing on time?
You have a choice of chairs. You're perfect. You want to take the beer?
I'm gonna skip the beer.
Yeah. Okay. From the beer to the water.
Yeah, we'll get some water, yeah.
How do you all feel? Still with us? Perfect.
Yeah, did I bore you to death?
No. I would suggest Flo to turn off the slideshow.
It's probably already on the second one.
I think we're already done with it. We had some technical issues with it, but it was so perfect that you didn't realize it. So
It was behind me.
yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Zof, for this interesting insight also into one of your main projects that you're doing in the festival. Before we dive deeper, maybe also into other projects, the festival itself, I sneaked a bit into the book Zof was publishing or had published, and there's a quote inside of them. I'm just going to read out. I'm determined, and this gives me a sense of freedom. I'm free from everything, which is not the mountain or myself. Free from fear and apprehension, because I have no choice left.
That's not me who wrote this.
No, it's not. Do you remember where it was?
Is it Steph Davis?
No. So it's from chapter 9, Rock Shelf High Above the Black Lake Valley.
Yeah, but who is the author of the quote? Because I don't know.
I wrote it somewhere. I think a Polish Martina something, W.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But my question behind this, do you actually relate to that? Also maybe to give you a little insight in the book, which is super interesting, and every chapter you have a little quote as an introduction to the chapter itself. Yeah.
I mean, you know, isn't it why we go climbing? As Maria said in the film, like, as soon as you're engrossed in the immediate action that you're taking, and it's not an action that you consider in any other terms, but the very, the very immediacy of it and what is going to keep you safe and what's going to keep you going. It's brilliant, isn't it? And funnily enough, you can achieve that, you can get that in the mountains with higher risks. But even if you do bouldering, like I predominantly do bouldering now, there is this idea really nicely encapsulated by John Gill, an American mathematician and sort of father of bouldering. He said that bouldering is the poetry of mountaineering. Because, you know, at this moment when you're about to top out a boulder and it's super slopey and you kind of feel like there is the abyss behind you, the immediacy of that can be as intense. Like, you know, if you're a super brave person with a super crazy fear threshold, maybe you're not going to get this like very visceral life and death experience, but it happens even on tiny rocks. So
would other mountaineers agree to that, to the poetry?
Well, let's take them bouldering.
Maybe, yeah. All right, so yeah, and having no choice left is also something as you close your input of as an everyday activist. Actually, we don't have a choice as to make conscious choices.
Well, we have no choice. Choices will be made. So the only choice we have is whether we're going to be aware of what's happening and try to be an active player in this game, or just let things happen to us and the world. And you know, it might feel like your actions are tiny, like you're only one human, but as I said, like, humanity is made of only one humans.
Yeah. Okay, coming back to something concrete, going back to the festival itself, actually. Congratulations, first of all, 8 years of having the festival in the second edition. 9 years this year. 9 years. And second edition of the Transfest. You were talking about inclusive events in one of your essays, and I stumbled again over this. Yeah, you're talking about the feeling of offense or feeling of exclusion from events that are not meant for us as a sign of fragility, something to work through internally. Isn't that too simple? Does it need a differentiation?
Well, why would you need to go for an event that's not for you? And if that event is not for you, not because it's excluding you and discriminating you, but because it's uplifting the people whom it invites, why do you need to crush it? Like, what are you missing? Are you sudden, like it's like with events for people of color or black people, why would a white person want to go there? And if they want to go there for good vibes, well, do they need to fetishize the already disenfranchised community so much to achieve their individualistic pursuit of some sort of pleasure? Like, be an adult.
How do you respond to that? Did you, like, if you come across that and across people, as you said, also people responding to the Women's Bouldering Festival and not feeling invited?
Well, so actually we had a very personal situation happen that reflects that problem. One of my close friends was involved in the festival from the beginning, and he was helping us as a first aid responder. Because when you've got 100, 200 climbers together, somebody will break their leg, somebody will, have an allergy reaction to a wasp. You need to have somebody who's a first aid responder. And at first, for the first 2-3 years, we didn't have enough women and Flinta volunteers to staff the whole event. So I basically reached out to my male friends and said, like, hey, I need your help. And so they were fantastic, they were helping. And then when, it was obvious for me and for the team from the beginning that we're basically creating something and we're waiting for more women, Flinta people to come and take those community volunteer leadership positions. And when they do, we're gonna, with utmost gratefulness, say thank you to the blokes that helped us and ask them to step away. And one of my close friends felt quite saddened by it and didn't understand why he would be not invited. And we were actually trying to work through it, and sort of where it ended up standing was that we invited everybody to the evening of the cultural program. On Saturday evening at the event, we've got what we call the cultural program, and it's some lectures, concerts, screenings, and that is open to everybody. But we basically try to make, for example, men aware that their presence. Many of the participants come because they have had bad experiences. And so if they come to the Women's Bouldering Festival, they want to feel safe. And having somebody present whom they might correctly or not identify as a potential predator is detrimental to their experience, to their growth. And basically, people who are not a part of the target group need to understand it. And if they don't, it's, we're kind of not responsible for it. They need to do their work.
Do you have any recommendation for places that want to create inclusive events or maybe an inclusive space? Maybe also to give you a bit of background. Actually, yesterday I went to one of our local climbing halls, and maybe some of you know there was a Tinfa place every Monday for a few months. Just at the end of 2024, it was kind of a tryout for 2 months, and it had a lot of positive feedback, but there was also a lot of negative feedback, because what they did actually was to take a new part of the climbing hall and just give it to Tinfa people on Monday evening for 5 hours. The rest of the week, it's open to everyone. So everyone out of the group had the rest of the hall to climb, and Tinfa people could also join the rest of the hall. And apparently, there was also big media outreach. You can still find online, but a lot of cis men and other people felt excluded. Actually, it was unfair. They couldn't use the whole climbing hall. They needed to pay the same price as the others. So, kind of reached out to big mass of people, and they closed off this event, and they're not doing it for now.
Okay.
It doesn't exist anymore. Is there any recommendation to those kind of places?
I mean,
people who want to create something like that.
Definitely. So basically, let's ask, why are those cis men upset? Are they upset because they're genuinely being discriminated against, or are they upset out of their sense of entitlement? Because if the event is not going to be closed off, and if it's not going to be created as an exclusive space for a certain type of disenfranchised, underserved, underrepresented people, they are not going to come. Because the vibe is such that they don't feel safe, they don't feel included, they don't feel seen. To give an example, I have a trans friend in the Fontainebleau area, and he stopped going to his local climbing wall because he didn't feel welcome. And then we had the first Trans Fest, and one of the Trans Fest days was very, very rainy. When it's rainy, we take the participants indoors, and we arranged with the climbing wall that we're going to bring the event there. I don't think they even knew that we're going to be a trans event. I just run an association. I said, can I bring participants? Yeah, sure. And so we rock up with 30 trans people, one of them being my friend. And at first there was a little bit of like, who are these people? They're weirdly dressed. They've got piercings. What gender are they? And then, when everybody started climbing and having a good time, it turns out everybody's a person like any other. And the vibe sort of loosened up so much that my mate now goes again to that wall because he saw that space welcomes him. But before, and also I think because now they're a climbing wall where a trans event happens, they cannot let people be transphobic. So if he goes there, he feels safe or safer. And it's,
So is it also not about over-communicating? Can it be? As you said, we're not making it super public. You were just saying we're coming with a bunch of people.
I mean, there is just always, it's a little bit of like, so I'm Polish, and in the 90s we had like a very strong wave of public feminism happening. And everybody was getting a little bit taken aback because, oh, those angry feminists are angry and they're not shaving their legs and they're shouting in the streets and creating, marches and public events. And that, it's like with pride events, people get a little bit sometimes rubbed the wrong way. But you need to realize that they're not doing anything that we wouldn't let the dominant group do. And so there are always two sides to how to approach increasing diversity and inclusivity. And one is the sort of like, wiggle your way in quietly. And one is be loud about it, smash some windows and cry. And I think both are valid. It's just depending on where you are with your personal experience and what are the goals and the stakes at hand. But you can't discredit it. I don't think, and also expecting people to be quiet, to be palatable to the dominant groups is discriminatory because the dominant groups are not quiet. Like, if you get a bloke who's like 90 kilograms, taking his shirt off at the gym and displaying his pecs the size of plates, is he not carrying his masculinity out in the open? And how is it any different than if a female climber wanted to climb with her boobs out? But suddenly that is really improper and she's being like a radical. Well, how can we expect women to, leap over the gender divide, the gender pay divide, or to have, equal rights when it comes to the justice system and protection against violence if we cannot enforce the same rights for governing our own bodies? Like, it's ridiculous.
Could you translate those experiences also you made now in the festival, grassroots initiatives you said, can you translate those kind of actions you do and things you do also to the institutionalized sport area? You talked about the Olympics, but also bigger, big-sized events, sport events or others.
I mean, it's difficult because obviously with big institutionalized structures comes big money, stakeholders, and it's very difficult to feel like grassroots actions have an immediate result or achieve immediate change. And it might be that the change they affect is actually not immediate. It might be long-term. But if we don't put up this resistance, and the resistance is grassroots events, the resistance is being informed. You don't need to go and boycott the Olympics. You just need to Google what are the social injustices that the Olympics create. How many people were pushed out of their houses for the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, and how many for 2016 in Rio, and by becoming informed, you partake in resistance because that over time changes the cultural climate. And the change in the cultural climate then results in institution change. But it's something that takes time.
So for being an activist, it takes a long breath.
And patience, yes. And thick skin.
How about the people that don't feel that anymore, or that lose hope and say, I don't have that skin anymore, I don't have that breath? I was just thinking and reading also today's image of activists in every other setting also getting way more attacked than maybe years ago, or it's like a big part of today's world that activism is seen as way more dangerous maybe from different parts.
I mean, I first time felt sort of like immediately threatened when we were having the second Transfest and we needed to set up some administrative things in place, and that would involve, because I am the sort of manager of the association who's legally responsible for the events, my address would be visible publicly, and that was the first time when I felt like, I actually don't want that. Because there are a lot of weirdos out there who can be very unpleasant, and you don't necessarily want to bring that unpleasantness into your home, into your house, into your private life, and for it to affect your safety. Then obviously there are the questions of, is my safety privilege? Who is stripped of that privilege? And should I be braver and sort of relinquish some of that privilege for the sake of greater good? But each of us is responsible first and foremost for our own well-being. So sacrificing yourself at the altar of some ideals, I don't really go for, because if you're not well, you can't do good work. And so for myself, being a neurodiverse person, I get tired very easily in very random ways and by things that wouldn't maybe get another person tired. And already in the second year of the Women's Bouldering Festival, I ended up having some pretty heavy mental health problems, like anxiety, and it got ugly. And I thought for a while, I need to push through this, I need to keep going. And people who were around me, my friends, stepped in and were like, dude, if you crash, get a burnout, and collapse here, that work is not gonna get done. Go and take care of yourself first. So we have a responsibility to ourselves as well. Each one of us to ourselves, because we cannot show up in the world in a way that is satisfactory to us and others if we're not feeling good.
Do you feel like it's still like this, that the responsibility is still on your shoulders? Or is there a broader sense of people involved into...
Much less.
So that this might not happen again?
No, it's massively diffused. So basically when I started, I was a foreigner in a country where I just moved in 6 months ago. I was trying to do something without a support network. And I had to basically call on my immediate friends, like this male friend who was our first day responder and my partner, and I had to be like, hey, help me, I'm doing this, we need to do this. But with time, we've got even Lara in the room somewhere who was a volunteer last year at the festival. Suddenly, there are emails coming in and in and in with people saying, we want to be a part of this, we want to help. How can we contribute? And through that, you create a network that can carry it without a detriment to the individual.
So what it brings me back to the question I had before, what it actually takes to create an inclusive event or also a long-lasting impact. When we speak about people, we speak about community.
So maybe I should bring it to what Adi said in the video. It's about respect, and when we started the event, we started the association, we were people with no prior experience of being at the helm of something that has an impact on other people. Suddenly you have got human resources problems. You might have inside of the team conflict that you need to resolve. You might have some sort of difficult situation between the participants of the event or the further public, and you need to know how to respond to this. The thing is, you will likely not know. And that's okay, but you need to try and always do it in a way that takes into account every side of the, I don't want to say conflict, but the situation. And you grow enormously through that as an organizer, because you need to like step up and not let others down. And then your effort creates something that does something positive for them, and then in turn they carry it forward. And whether it's also becoming an organizer of some sort, or just being a person who feels safe in the world and confident enough to stand up for their own needs and the needs for others in their group, that's already huge. So it's listening and questioning and always like being open to stand corrected.
Stand corrected in front of others or in front of yourself?
To stand
as well?
corrected, I mean, in the sense of knowing that anything that we do could actually be informed by societal structures that make us have certain beliefs that are not necessarily true, but they might feel true because that's how we grew up. So, for example, random example, I grew up in an extremely ethnically homogenous place. So I thought, well, I can't be racist. And then I moved to places which were less homogenous, and people of color said, well, you're racist. And I said, well, I can't be racist. I don't know any black people. And they were like, exactly. They were like, who are your neighbors? I'm like, I don't know, they're black. Well, exactly. I go say hi, And by being, in this white bubble, you are racist because you're creating a divide. But the people who are underrepresented, disenfranchised, or discriminated, for them it takes so much more effort. They put themselves in danger to break through those divisions. For a person in a certain power position, for a person with privilege, using that privilege is of much less it creates much less danger, and it requires way fewer resources, energy, and so you should do it. If you can, you should do it. Yeah.
So it brings me also back maybe to the topic before, what we had when we create those safe spaces, inclusive events, now speaking for women, for Tinfa people, Flinta people, and then cis men coming in. So how can they, what makes them allies as well? Like as you said, also white people, how can we broaden up how can we stop this divide and
well,
break
first
the
of all,
barriers?
support the other group's right to do things on their own and don't go where your presence might be detrimental. And second of all, take responsibility for your own education. So if you are a dude, don't expect women to teach you everything about feminism. We've got Google and libraries, and you can learn a lot. And if you're a white person, don't go and ask your black friends, oh, what is your experience like? Yes, if this feels like natural, if this is a part of a conversation you're having, if this is like your friendly exchange, great. But don't treat them as like a resource. Don't make them do unpaid labor for your enlightenment so you feel woke. Take responsibility of eradicating your own ignorance. And also use your privilege to stand up for injustice.
Could be a good ending word already, but I think we're not there yet. I'm still curious of you. When I was introducing you, I was mentioning all the broad fields that you're interested in, that you're working in as a writer, as an artist, as an organizer, maybe a former elite sports person. How do you perceive or see yourself, actually? Are you an activist? Are you an artist?
I'm autistic. I struggle with self-image. I don't know who I am, what I am, and why I am. I'm just a bundle of confusion. So let's just leave it at that.
All right. Okay, maybe then I don't know if that's actually a good question. Do you feel for yourself, is it an advantage or a disadvantage to bring this confusion also, or bring this broad interest into the field you're working? Or you're in?
Go on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there is this perception that everybody should, like, especially in today's world when everything is so, like, soundbite and Instagrammable, and if you're not niche, you're not going to go viral or whatever, but humans are multifaceted individuals. The world is multifaceted. Like, nothing has one side. Everything is connected. Like, the whole point of intersectionalism is that things are interconnected, and not even on like one plane, but sort of multidimensionally. And being a person who just, even though sometimes I might want to create this image of myself as like, this is who I am, very brandable, very marketable, I can't. So maybe that's good, you know, because it sort of reminds people that we are all a little weird, and you might like soloing. I'm not the person that does like solo climbing, but you know, you might be a person who does loads of solo climbing and likes knitting, and you might be a person who's got this enormous privilege of being a white, English-speaking, educated man, but at the same time you might have a mental health disease or come from a, you know, abusive home, and that will be your massive like lack of privilege, which will hinder your experience. Like, and somebody might then perceive you, oh, you're like so great because, like, you know, you're white, you've got money, you're a guy, you speak English. Well, if you come from a home where both your parents were alcoholics with depression, it's not going to help you much, right? But the perception is very unidimensional, but nothing is unidimensional.
It's not linear.
No.
That's where the respect maybe still comes in.
Yeah, just like getting to know people, asking questions, being open to experiences, being open to multi-narrational sort of stories, because that's what life is.
What can others learn from your process, also as a neurodivergent person? Is there anything you could give to other neurodivergent people?
I think it's more that I'm trying to learn from them. What can others learn from? Well, things that I learned for myself is that you actually do need other people to do things, because I very much was this person trying to do things on my own because it's hard for me to collaborate. So I had to learn to relinquish some control in favor of actually building a team, or letting the team build itself around me. Because when you're a person who wants to do everything on their own, people have to come in and actually grab responsibilities away from you. So we've got, as I said, we've got this Saturday evening cultural program at the event, which takes a lot of energy to organize, because you need to find speakers, you need to find funding, you need to figure out the venue, you need to, you know, there is food for 250 people, it's a lot. And I was always going a little bit crazy with it, because I also had to do everything else. And 2 years ago, one of also neurodiverse members of the team just came over to me and said, Zof, you're done with Saturday evening, I'm doing it now. And I was like, no, you're not. And she was like, yes, I am. Go away, take a rest, get a beer. I'm like, I love you, thank you, thank you so much. And so, yeah, that's kind of cool. I think everybody has different things to learn, you know, depending on the individual. And it's cool. Like, nobody's path is the same.
So you also might be an overachiever sometimes.
I mean, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just the nature of things, I guess. Also in today's world, we're so, like, conditioned to think that the only way we can be relevant is if we are widely successful in some way, you know. So, for example, I would put myself down enormously for not being minted, you know, from my activities. But, like, it's kind of hard to expect from myself to be minted if what I do is non-profit organizing and writing. So this expectation that, oh, you know, if I'm not making loads of money, that means I'm a failure, is ridiculous. But the world kind of wants you to have it all, but you can't have it all. You have to live and choose. There is a wonderful quote, I think from Sylvia Plath, about fig tree. And if you sit under this fig tree and you see those beautiful fruit, like sort of every year and every brunch, and you sit there and you're wondering, which fruit do I want to take? And as you're sitting there, they start wilting and going rotten, and you can't decide which to take. And because you can't decide on what you want, you end up not getting anything. So I think being able to say, like, well, I'm not going to be super rich, but I'm going to find satisfaction in my work, and it's fine. That's also a big lesson. You know, for somebody, it might be the other way. It might be, somebody who, for example, grew up in enormous poverty, or for whatever other reasons, they might think that financial stability and having loads of savings is their life goal. And they might do a completely draining and unpleasant and non-satisfying job, but it's going to be the good choice for them because the goal was to make the money and make themselves feel stable and safe, and that's absolutely fine too. But you have to make a choice.
Yeah. Did you make the choice to write a second book?
Yes. So we're going to have the second edition of Born to Climb coming out sometimes in the next 1 or 2 years, because this is actually one of the last 2 hardback copies from the first edition published in 2022 or 2023. And there is no more physical copies, so there's going to be second edition updated of Born to Climb. And that's probably going to be just ebook this time, so that it's a little bit more accessible and sort of like also easier in terms of distribution and whatnot. But I'm also working on a novel, and it's... Yeah, let's not go there.
The confusion.
Yeah, that's where the confusion starts.
Yeah. Amazing. There's one last question. Actually, we also had now the habit to ask every guest we have in this loud and fast and overwhelming world we're living in, and what we're seeing also right now. Is there something that gives you hope?
Well, everybody's here today. That gives me hope. You could have all been drinking on the river or climbing, or, but everybody chose to come here and maybe get to know about something they didn't know, or maybe challenge their existing opinions, or maybe, some of you are going to now tell me that you completely disagree with what I said, and you will bring forth something that is equally valid and important to hear. But we're here. We're making the choice to collaborate, to learn. Community, I guess, is the only hope we have, however difficult that might be for some people, like for myself, for people who are not natural team players. But it is, we only have each other. And we're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Zof.
Thank you.
Now it's your part. I'm just making this very unconventional, going over to our technician and taking the microphone. As we're such a little group, and the last 2 evenings we collected the cards, we made a little choice, and we couldn't answer every question we had. So I'm proposing that I just walk around, and if you have a question or remark or maybe something,
maybe you want to tell me I'm delusional, so go on.
Something, please. You're very invited. We're very open. You can also turn around. Maybe we can lower the light a little bit so you can also actually see each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and have you had any experiences around what we've been talking about, and good ones, bad ones? This is kind of your time.
Is there anything that wants to be shared?
I can't see you, so I don't know if anybody wants to share anything, or you're just not bothered.
You can just raise your hand, I will see you.
Come on, I need one bothered person.
Yeah, it can also be an experience that wants to be shared.
Or
Something
otherwise
else.
we just all go to drink beer.
If it's not, it's also totally okay. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, would it be possible to lower the light somewhat so I could see people, please? Maybe not.
All right. Do you see me?
I hear you.
Perfect.
Maybe you can say your name also.
I'm Malin. We met once in a Zoom call for Flinta organizing stuff, and I made a Flinta climbing sign, but that's not my question. I was wondering, because I'm also a climbing instructor, what do you think is a thing that I can do as an instructor, as a person standing in front of people, to make it more inclusive? What do you give your mentors on the way when they get a group? Or do you have any inputs?
I mean, sort of letting people know that you're not expecting one type of a client or climber to come to you. and maybe what we do with mentors, we sort of try to make them aware of the fact that people might not be comfortable sharing their experience or their disability or their difficulty or whatever it is that's detrimental, or maybe not detrimental, but whatever it is that's slightly different in their experience than the dominant experience. And by being the person who's in the leadership position and saying things like, hey, what are your pronouns? Have you got any health problems? You don't need to state them out loud. You can go with me to the side. Like, you know, being open to the fact that somebody who wants to climb might have fear of heights. Just providing people with a sense of safety and that it's okay to reveal who they are. I think that's it. But also, I don't want to make assumptions, but if you yourself don't come necessarily from a dominant group, that's, you know, standing in a leadership position, you are already creating change. I don't know if that answers your question. Thank you for the question.
Sure. Okay.
Lara.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. And to this question, I could maybe also add that from being a mentor last year at the Women's Bouldering Festival. So yeah, I was looking for the group and like looking at everyone and talking to everyone what they want, what they need, and then just having a look, looking around and checking what they need and asking and talking about it. And I thought they all felt safe, so from what I saw, and they had fun. But yeah, that was my approach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a follow-up question to that or something else that wants to be shared? Okay, we got Andy. Andy's our second special guest, actually, as a partner of Zof. And we have a third special guest sleeping in the bag.
Yeah, like if you turn around, there is a little basket and my dog is hiding in there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back to what you mentioned about the climbing gym that had tried to organise a Tinfer evening. And
Had organised,
yeah, it got cancelled, I guess. So I was thinking about the importance of being able to tell the stories of the people who benefit from events like that and getting them heard by the community. So you talk about daughters, sisters, girlfriends who've had those experiences, who get to exist in a space where they act socially differently because there is no male presence there, and just the value that that brings to them and to the climbing community more broadly as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. That brings me just something when I did the research now on this Tinfer evening, and I'm also curious. I think maybe some more people are even more even have more background on the topic, but on the Tinfer evening, and that in a climbing hall there was this one of the directors saying maybe it's also the claim of having a Tinfer evening. They were like, okay, we could have named it Women's Climbing Evening, but we make choice of a Tinfer evening to include also all the other people, and it kind of triggered some people. So maybe that's a question to you also. Is there an intentional choice on the Women's Bouldering Festival, name of it?
No, actually there wasn't, and it's something that we keep talking about, and there, you know, is like an inter-organizational conversation going on for years. Should this be women with an X, standing for all the intersecting disadvantages, or should it be women's plus, or should it be Flinta? And actually bringing into the roster the second event, the Fontainebleau Transfest, we decided that we're going to keep the Women's Bouldering Festival the Women's Bouldering Festival, because this is an event that centers women's experiences, and non-binary people are absolutely welcome. Basically everybody who like shares in the experience of being socially treated as a woman or identifying as a woman is welcome, or non-binary as well. But like while like, you know, I mean, sometimes people say that to welcome somebody, you need to really, really acknowledge them. Yes, we will acknowledge, for example, that we might have non-binary participants, but we have an event for them. So if they want to be like at the center, go to Transfest, you know? That's gonna be the thing for you. And so the pressure is slightly off from the Women's Bouldering Festival to be inclusive of people who are not women. And you know, like as I said, if somebody wanted to do like a men bouldering festival, like if their reasons are right, like it's very, very different when it's, and you know, we've got such a increase in sort of far right and masculinist attitudes, but there is again an incredibly big difference between an event that seeks to exclude people who are not men because it seeks to put them down, as opposed to an event who brings men together so that they can feel safe, talk about their vulnerabilities, maybe use each other's support to encourage each other to be more supportive of other groups. You know, there are plenty of reasons that might make such a gathering viable and important. So why not, right?
So maybe even need more inclusive events, like broken down, having just male events, having just women events, having just Flinta events, breaking it all down, or doesn't it make it also very complex?
I mean, you know, the goal of these events is always to make them obsolete. Like, the goal of having a women's bouldering festival is that we will, I mean, you know, in the current social climate and in the current social systems that we're a part of, I can't envisage a time when gender would not be a differentiating factor in terms of discrimination. But the idea is that we do it so that one day we don't have to do it, so that it feels like, why would we do it? Like, women are as safe and as welcome and as empowered within climbing as men. So
we don't need that.
We don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That would be nice.
Yeah, same for trans people, right? Yeah. Like, it should be so normal, like, that somebody is trans, and whether they are cispassing or not cispassing, it's like nobody's business until they're like their super close friend or intimate partner what their gender is like. But because this is not the case, we need Transfest, where trans people can come together and feel safe until they can just go wherever they want and feel safe.
Are there any other voices? Still want to invite some. Something else that wants to be shared, some experience, something you maybe disagree with, that also is very welcome. Saying goodbye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can also flee if you want, like.
Yeah.
I think we already talked about it a little bit, but for example, you have it in every sports. And friends of mine, they organize Flinta events in snowboarding and skiing. And also there, like, people feel excluded, and it's usually the ones that are the loudest. But how do you then handle that? Like, I think we already talked about it a little bit, but it's in every sport. Is it about how you communicate it, and maybe sometimes they try to make it, like, to combine it still with everyone, but then it loses the purpose of the event. It's really difficult because the ones who are the loudest, it breaks a lot from the organization. Do you have any advice also for other sports, how you can improve that, like how you can handle these people?
Find the balance.
I mean, snowboarding is particularly like difficult because it's only like the last 10 years that you get more women snowboarders. But I think, you know, those loud voices are relevant and important if you give them relevance and importance. So be like, hey, you want to jump around and be angry about it? Go on, knock yourself out, but go and do it somewhere else because we have our event here. Just like, you know, that sort of shuts them up. And as soon as you don't let them break your vibe, it becomes about your vibe, and their problem is like, well, go and get a therapist and start feeling better about yourself. And it's hard, but if you also when you start feeling like the benefits from what you do, like, and I'm sure you've experienced that already. To give an example from my side, I remember a particular scene in 2018 when I rocked up to the crag already when the event, Women's Bouldering Festival, was in full swing, because I had some admin work to do in the background. And I walked into the crag and I saw 100 women at the crag having like the best freaking climbing time. And it was a super powerful moment for me because it was so clear that like ignoring all the haters, the critics, the loud shouters was important. And after you experience that, like suddenly they're just like take your toys and go elsewhere, really. So ignore them. They have a problem, you don't. Sorry, I don't have anything more insightful. It's just like, keep doing your thing, and thank you for doing it. And I love skiing.
Okay, any last words? Last things to share? Okay, I don't want to bother you any longer.
I don't want to bother them any longer.
No. I think the last thing to do is to give a huge thanks to all of you, to all that participated, also in the other evenings, to our wonderful guests of tonight, to Andy and the dog, who were pretty great tonight.
And to you for doing a great job moderating and
Thank
putting
you
it all
very
in place
much,
with
yeah.
Carmen. Thank you.
Very officially also to our partners. It's the EEK in Bern, Patagonia, and the International Climbing and Mountaineering Federation. That's often mentioned in the book, as I found out searching for it. Thanks to everyone supporting. We're very much looking forward to a next season of Activism Alpinism. There's not a date yet. It will be end of this year. We're going to start again, different topics, kind of the same setting. We're still discussing that, and you're really welcome to join the reflection, actually. So you can just reach out to Carmen from the ALPS, from the museum. Is there something you're curious about? People that need to be invited, people that need to get this stage, present their projects, wherever they come from. Something that needs to have a stage and wants to be discussed and wants to be coactively, brought up together. So we were very much looking forward to that. And before leaving, actually Zof told me that they are going to the mountains tonight, 1,400 meters. And the last 2 evenings were a beautiful present from Patagonia, a really warm jacket, and I was like, that's a perfect present now for going up the mountain, but actually now it's turning summer. So we still have a little present for you.
Oh my God, thank you so much. That's super kind.
For coming over here all the way from France.
It was
enjoying
the perfect excuse
Swiss
to come
spring.
back to Switzerland after 10 years.
Perfect.
So thank you. And yes, mountains tonight.
Enjoy climbing, have a good trip.
Thank you.
Still driving, a few hours, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to tell the people where you're going to go. Maybe some
I'm
people
going to go
know
to
that.
Magic Wood. I haven't been there for 11 years. I'm super psyched. I'm going to get shut down on a lot of boulders.
Cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy your trip. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Happy to see you again. Hopefully.
Likewise. And please, to everybody, and especially to you, come to the Women's Bouldering Festival. Or to the Transfest.
When is it?
The Women's Bouldering Festival is 11th to 13th of September this year. And the Transfest is going to be probably in April next year. So
Alright.
we still have got a little bit of time to...
So mark your calendars.
Yeah.
Maybe we can organize a little trip all together.
Yeah.
Would be
Yeah,
amazing.
and if you want to organize an event for any other underprivileged or otherwise group, we've got the legal structure to do that. So reach out and we can make things happen.
Amazing. And if you haven't read it yet, pretty interesting book, even if you're not into climbing. There are also a lot of personal stories from Zof inside.
And there are only 2 hard copies left, and it feels really weird, but once they're gone, it's like, no more.
So go for it. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm not sure if you're still around for discussion. I think you're heading off quite soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a few moments. I'll finish my beer.
So if you still have a question, we're keeping things, we're getting things together. If you're happy to leave your notes on the chair, that's actually something we're collecting, also from the other evenings, because it's a super precious insight. To get it also kind of a feedback. If you want to take it with you as a souvenir, do that. And otherwise, final thing to say is have a good evening. Enjoy the warm weather still, maybe. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.